On the evening of August 9, 1965, Malaysia has unanimously voted to kick out Singapore. Lee Kuan Yew announced to the people in tears, "Singapore is forced to become independent from today." Singapore at the moment, like a baby abandoned by its parents. This is full of racism, social disorder, the largest slum in the world. How to become one of the 4 Asian tigers. Countries with a GDP per capita of up to $90,000. Read the history of Singapore in one sitting. During the period of capitalist colonial rule. Due to the fact that Singapore is located in the Strait of Malacca, this important trade route, targeted by the British East India Company. January 29, 1819, representative of the British East India Company, Stamford Raffles arrives in Singapore. A trade agreement with the Kingdom of Rufu. Then 2 new treaties were signed in 1824. The formal incorporation of Singapore into the British territory. With the rapid development of maritime trade, after the opening of the Suez Canal, Singapore has become a unique strategic trading destination. Foreign countries have adopted a policy of tax exemption for transactions, further attracting international trade and investment. As a free port, Singapore, attracting an influx of immigrants from neighboring countries, quickly formed a diverse, ethnic Southeast Asia trade center. After decades of rapid development, from a few thousand people when the port was first established, the number of people continued to increase to more than 200,000. The trade quota has increased by 8 times, until the outbreak of World War II. Located in the Pacific Ocean, the southern entrance of the Strait of Malacca, between the Indian Ocean and become a battleground for soldiers. December 8, 1941. The Japanese forcibly landed in Malaya. The prosperity that Singapore enjoyed. It was also interrupted by World War II. The Japanese army attacked from northern Malaya. Let the original Fink, British commander to meet the enemy on the south coast. Caught off guard. Although the troops are superior. Coalition, he surrendered to Japan on February 15, 1942. This is Ying, the largest surrender in military history. The island was once regarded as a formidable fortress. It was later named Kainan Island by Japan, after the Japanese occupied Singapore, exploiting the Malay whistleblowing policy, differentiate the feelings between Chinese and Malays. During the 3-year Japanese occupation of Singapore, 20,000 to 50,000 Chinese were killed. After Japan surrendered in 1945, the British Army returns to Singapore. The British colonial government regained control of the Ice City, Strait settlements of Malacca and Singapore. But their WeChat is not as good as it used to be. Although Britain tried to recover gradually, colonial rule of Singapore. But in the face of growing local demands for independence, Britain was forced to relax Singapore autonomy within the Commonwealth. Since the 50s, the UK is slowly pushing for political reform in Singapore, implemented land restrictions. But this reform, failure to meet Singapore's demand for autonomy. Between 1956 and 1958, the Singaporean government and the British government, 3 restriction talks were held. Finally, the United Kingdom agreed, endowed Singapore self-government status within the Commonwealth. In 1959, Singapore was under Lee Kuan Yew and the People's Action Party. Establishment of the autonomous state of Singapore. Lee Kuan Yew becomes Singapore's first prime minister. Lee Kuan Yew in power. Implement a series of reform measures. They eliminated the gang industries that were disrupting the social order. Resolve the small size of Singapore. Lead to resource scarcity. He actively talked to Malaya, hoping to boost Singapore's economy through a merger. Malaya since ancient times. It has the same history as Singapore. Singapore has a geographical advantage in the port. It can also bring economic development to Malaya. This win-win policy, without a doubt the best way at the time. But the Malayan government rejected Lee Kuan Yew's request. 70% of Singapore's population is Chinese. Malaya is worried about the peace with Singapore. This has led to an increase in the proportion of Chinese in Malaya, threatening the Malayan ruling regime. To facilitate the merger, Lee Kuan Yew found the British Federal Foreign Office Sandhs. With British intervention, Malaya put Salad Moon and Sabah Wu into merger negotiations. Finally, in 1963, in Malaya, Shilao Moon, Sabah and Singapore joined forces to form Malaysia. However, the merged parties, the conflict broke out in just 2 months. Consolidated expenditure, the two sides agreed not to interfere in local elections. Malays in Singapore supported multiple candidates to run for election. Want to build a Malaysia led by Malays. Discrimination against Chinese on racial issues. The two sides have constitutionally unequal treaties. Grant the Malays a special position in power. In governing the country, huge problems with cultural nuance. Internationally, Indonesia wants to annex Malaysia. Repeatedly instigated relations between Malays and Chinese. Eventually, there were ethnic riots. In 1964, the two sides clashed in Singapore. 20 people died. 400 people were injured. To calm national sentiment, the Malaysian parliament has decided expel Singapore from the Union. Congress voted 126 in favor and voted against the proposal. This means Lee Kuan Yew's years of hard work were also in vain. Singapore was forced to become independent. There is also a scene of Lee Kuan Yew crying. But reality is in front of you. Lee Kuan Yew's urgent need. Finding a way out for Singaporeans. Singapore has just been kicked out of the Federation of Malaysia. The danger of aggression at any time. Lee Kuan Yew actively seeks international recognition. Join the Commonwealth to seek protection. The team takes iron-blooded risks. Give deformities to those who incite ethnic and clan sentiments. Big enough to rob, rape, drugs. Small enough to spit chewing gum anywhere. Public drunkenness and driving are all sentenced to border punishment. 90% of people who go down three sides will go into shock due to pain. County law of words and deeds, a tranquilizer for a volatile society. Lee Kuan Yew needs to realize, first and foremost, we must ensure economic prosperity and social stability. It is possible to solve other problems. The housing shortage is an urgent issue facing the people. Therefore, he introduced the land acquisition law. The government buys private land at low prices and build affordable housing on a large scale. Simultaneously implement the Central Provident Fund policy, helping people buy homes and build wealth. These measures quickly solved the problem of slums, enabling most people to start owning their own homes. It enhances social stability and well-being. In the face of an economic downturn, Lee Kuan Yew actively promoted foreign trade and attract foreign investment. Take advantage of Singapore's geographical advantages, development of intra trade, attract Europe and the United States, economic cooperation between Japan and other countries. Therefore, he made English the official language. Develop English skills for all. Closing the language barrier. It is convenient for foreign business people to cooperate with Singaporeans in doing business. In addition, he also made great efforts to develop relations with the ocean, shipping-related industries, attracting foreign companies to settle in, enabling Singapore's economy. A staggering 13% growth in just 10 years. In the early days, Singapore developed petrochemicals, high-tech industries and other industries, become an emerging industrial country in Asia. While promoting economic development, Lee Kuan Yew takes corruption very seriously. He increased the number of government officials by strengthening the powers of the Anti-Corruption Bureau and enact strict anti-corruption laws, successfully maintained the integrity of the government and the effectiveness of policy implementation. Singapore, therefore, on the global list of connected countries, stay at the forefront. boosting investor confidence in Singapore. Through Lee Kuan Yew's leadership and decision-making, Singapore not only did it successfully overcome the difficulties of the early days of independence, and it has achieved impressive economic and social development achievements. To date, Singapore has become the richest country in the world, one of the most advanced and competitive economies. Its people enjoy a high quality of life and quality public services. Singapore's success is inseparable from the wisdom of Lee Kuan Yew, determined and committed to national development.